deep in an underground secret Pacific Island lair, Pop Culture Minefield presents Saturday Morning Fun Time. This is the Comic Relief Crusader telling you to get your morning cereal ready, because here we go.
That, of course, is our good friend Mike, who records that little announcements for us. He sounds just like, what is he? Ted Baxter, actor. Oh, my God, I forgot his name. Anyway, because he did a lot of voices for Batman and shit like that. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Saturday Fun Time. What's that?
Ted Knight.
Ted Knight, you got it. Thanks. Kevin is here, Kevyn Major Howard. He's not just a Kevin Howard. He's a Major Howard. I had a buddy of mine in the Marine Corps. His name was Major. His last name was Major, and he was a sergeant. So it's just funny saying his name's Sergeant Major. But anyway, it's nice to see you, Kevin. You did a great episode with the Chief on Tuesday. Just a fan. If you guys haven't checked it out yet, go watch that episode. It's one of the best episodes the Chief has done. And Chief always puts out quality product, man. Always does. But Kevin, it's such a delight to meet you, because one, you got to work with probably one of the greatest directors of the 20th century, Stanley Kubrick.
Yes.
And that's something else. I've known a couple of people, like I was friends before he passed away, Joe Turkel from Blade Runner.
Yeah. And
he'd been in 4 movies with him. And I'm like, God, what is that like? And he's one of those actors, by the way, he could not retain lines. He had to have lines written on index cards and shit and pasted all over the place so he could remember his lines. You ever run into anybody like that in your work?
I haven't, but Marlon Brando made that famous on the water. Was it on the water? No, it was
Heist.
Stella.
Stella.
With De Niro.
Yes.
Oh, Stella.
Yeah.
Streetcar named
Desire. Absolutely. And he used to write.
He was doing it all the way back then?
Yeah. I mean, to be Marlon Brando at that point and work with Elia Kazan, the director, and then to not know your lines. And his approach was he didn't want to know his lines. He wanted it to be very spontaneous. But a lot of his work became so popular because he was such an interesting actor. At a table scene with Blanche Dubois and his wife, Stella, he's turning over the teacup plate and he's reading the back of it, yet we don't know that. And he's actually looking for his next line. It might be on your shirt collar, working opposite him. It might be in the corner of the kitchen on the wall. But he made that very popular and his approach. And a lot of actors started using that kind of method acting, I suppose, to keep it refreshed.
Outstanding. Yeah, and he did do that. And I remember him saying that he wanted to feel like it was the first time he was saying it.
Yes.
And so it felt more natural. But a lot of times, so actors, and we're going to get into that with you, is like actors that I've run into on stage, et cetera, and in film, tend to just read the lines rather than say the lines. And you, on the other hand, you've done a really good job of building a career, and you got to be in a lot of cool shit there.
Seriously, yeah.
You got the shit kicked out of you by Frank Sinatra.
I did. Yes.
And now I'm going to assume you didn't actually fall off that platform.
I did not. I find it interesting. I can't remember how that was actually done, but it was really brilliantly done. And by the way, that was Frank's only television in his career. He had heard from, I think it was Larry Manetti, Tom Selleck's partner on the show, that
right.
Frank was interested in doing the show. And Tom Selleck did not believe him. Larry flew Tom in and they went to see Mr. Sinatra's show in Vegas. And backstage they met and Frank looked at Tom and said, I want to do the show. Within 2 weeks, they had written that show for Frank Sinatra. And I was blessed to have the guest starring role opposite him, and truly a treat in my life to be able to walk around and say, I got to work with Blue Eyes himself.
Oh, heck yeah.
Well, as mentioned on my show now, you were killed by Frank Sinatra. right?
Right.
By Frank Sinatra.
You're killed by Charles Bronson, right?
Yes.
Death Wish 2, and then you were killed in Sudden Impact by Clint
By
Eastwood.
Clint
right?
Eastwood. And I have a
Yes.
clip
Yeah,
from
I mean
that
that's
too.
the trifecta of there's got to be an award out there somewhere for that. I don't, killed by three
Well,
A-listers.
Right.
One interesting thing is, if you didn't know this, Kevin, that Sinatra was up for the role of Dirty Harry and was not able to take the role because of an injury to his wrist, and he couldn't hold up the 44 Magnum.
Wow. All right. I did not know that.
Yeah. So, but I do have a clip from it. I'm going to show your demise here. If that's
All right.
okay with you.
Look, it won't do you any good to take me back anyway, man. My lawyers will get me off. You know they will. I'll say Dusty did it. What difference does it make to you?
She was my granddaughter. You slimy bastard.
Rainey!
Is that your yell? Because it sounded like
It
you.
is. I think it is. I
It
didn't
sounds
realize
like you.
that was an awful long fall, I guess.
Yeah. I'm still falling. Anyway.
Right? Yeah, I don't remember that shot at all going over the balcony. I really don't. So yeah, that was yesteryear and yesteryear forgotten.
Well, that was kind of your decade going, through the 80s. You were on a lot of stuff in the 80s. In a lot of stuff. Movies it's in, TV it's on.
I was very blessed, having a great father myself. He was a vocalist, pianist all of his life and well known. Cab Calloway's lead singer on Broadway when I was growing up as a baby. And, he taught me those attributes that would manifest into an acting career. And so thank you, Dad. And he saw that early on in my upbringing that he thought I would be travel in that direction. So he prepared me for those icons that I got the chance to work with. And here we are a couple decades later talking about those moments.
What inspired you to become an actor? Was it your dad?
No, I can't say it was, but what I can say is this. I had changed high schools at one point, about grade 10, and there was a leader of the pack, so to speak. He was the in guy, good looking, and he invited me to come to his school, and I did. We became best friends through that summer. Now at school, he invited me into the school play. He always was the lead actor in all of his school plays. And even though I said, no, Mark, this is not my cup of tea, he talked me into doing it. And I found myself and him laughing through our rehearsals, just enjoying the process. Lo and behold, the play went up for a few nights at Eric Hamber High School in Vancouver, British Columbia. And all of a sudden I became this new hit. An agent saw me and put me in my first commercial with Jeff Hislop from Jesus Christ Superstar. And the rest is history. I decided at 20 years old, after playing music with a rock band by the name of Magic, that I was relying on four other individuals' lives to make sure that I became a success. And however, one of those rock members fell apart and couldn't travel forward into our future. And so the band kind of became non-existent. And I didn't
What was your instrument?
I played bass and I played guitar, but mostly bass in that band.
We would have gotten along. I'm a drummer.
Are you really? Yeah, we definitely would have gotten along. I still have my Ricky. It's a blonde Ricky, and I still have my amp. So I'm ready for a concert, so to speak.
At all times, you're ready at the drop of a hat. But where was the big transition for you from music? Because your dad was a performer musically.
Yes.
For the acting, was it that one play?
It was, and also I think it was the commercial that I did that got a lot of attention in Vancouver, Canada at that point. And my father, being a very proud man and proud of his son, was getting phone calls from friends and saying, "I just saw your son on TV," and I could just see that beautiful smile on my father's face at how proud he was. And so I think because of his artistry, his career, it kind of propelled me into mine. And the very first film I had ever seen with my father was actually a Clint Eastwood movie, Two Mules for Sister Sarah. With
Oh, that's a fun movie. Okay.
And so I found myself sitting in that movie theater looking at my father, more at my father than at the screen, and realizing that Clint Eastwood was very much a favorite of his. And so he had passed away the same day Elvis Presley passed away in 1977. And lo and behold, my history is I've worked with Mr. Sinatra, I've worked with Clint Eastwood, all some of Dad's favorites. And
the trifecta of tough guys.
Yeah, you know. And so I think my father has still got his touch in my life, and certainly made a lot of these journeys happen, I think.
That's good. And I like hearing stuff like that, because one of the things that Martin and I talked about was how, in your interviews, as well as when you were in the films, you tend to play slimy characters, but I think there's a little bit of you in Rafter Man.
There is. It's funny. Matthew Modine sat me down one day on the set, and he said, "So why do you think Mr. Kubrick hired you to play Rafter Man?" And there was, of course, an awful lot of synergy with Stanley Kubrick and Clint Eastwood and Death Wish 2 and Scared Straight, Another Story, where he had got to see my bad side, character roles. But he said from those three films is why he reached out to me to put me in as Rafter Man. But when Matthew asked me that question, I actually answered Matthew. I said, Matthew, it's interesting. I'm very athletic, but I found myself in PE, physical ed, with all the other guys growing up as young high schoolers. And you know how you'd pick two people to be captains to pick out their teams. Even though I was very good at athleticism, I was also the smaller guy in the gymnasium. And I was always last to be picked. And it hurt my feelings. It really did. But now as I look back, because of my upbringing and my experiences and my father being that artist, I realized I was kind of an outsider. I was the awkward one. I didn't fit in to the norms. And so I think that's why Stanley actually hired me. I was the new guy.
He saw something.
Yeah, and I think Stanley was very, very clever in casting that attribute to be Rafter Man and finding it within me as a actor that he saw that quality. So I think that's probably the best answer I can give you on why I became Rafter.
Well, I got to say that Rafter Man, of all the characters in the film, has the greatest character arc.
Well,
and because part of it's because I've read the book Short Timers way before the movie came out. I have association with that because the 6 Degrees of Separation, because Dale Dye, like I think I told you, is Daddy DA in the book. And they actually cast a black actor to play Daddy DA in the film. I don't think I've ever seen him in anything else. But Dale, has regaled me with some of the real stories that led to what's in the book. But Rafter Man is an amalgamation of several characters that they worked with, because Dale was there with them. He was a combat reporter too. Yeah. And for the Marine Corps. And but the scene, and I'm getting ready to show it, because I love the scene with you and Joker, Matthew Modine, right at the first moment in Vietnam, and the hooker comes up and starts doing her spiel and doing the dancing and everything, and then you guys get robbed of your camera.
Right.
But this scene, I like this one because you actually have the opinion of a lot of grunts from the Vietnam War. And I'm going to show it real quick here, if you don't mind.
Please.
You know what really pisses me off about these people?
What?
We're supposed to be helping them, and they shit all over us every chance they get. I just can't feature that. It
was the irony of being there, because they wanted us there, and yet they didn't. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people don't know that the reason we were there was because of a treaty. We had signed a treaty, and that's why there are other countries involved with that, Australia and New Zealand in particular. And we had to back up that treaty. And the problem is we ended up, instead of being support, we ended up leading the fight. And that was where things went south for us, even though we did win. A lot of people think we lost the war. It's like, no. We killed everybody at the Tet Offensive. And the Tet Offensive was actually an accidental 2-day operation, which you show in the film when the airbase gets hit. And but I'm curious, when you did the film and you were getting ready for that part, how did you feel about soldiers before you got this part?
You know, I never took notice of soldiers, and maybe there's a reason why. Being from Canada, and I'd only come to the United States when I was 20, so a lot of soldier campaigns were not very involved in Canada's culture,
Even though they do have some of the best special forces I've ever seen.
right? But we were not brought up on that kind of uh, obvious culture. And if anything, we were very well known for all the draft dodgers, especially in Vancouver, Canada.
You go into Canada.
Yeah, you know, everybody was leaving, and so we had a totally different perspective. And Canada is Vancouver, British Columbia is a very transient hippie society that lives there. So we weren't very much educated on the campaign of soldiers themselves. It wasn't until I got into Full Metal Jacket that I began to realize the people standing around me in my society. These were extraordinary people, as I've become to learn. People who wear the uniform proudly and serve in our armed forces, to me, are the biggest heroes I can imagine. And maybe that's why the influence of Full Metal Jacket has put me on this destiny to embark about bragging about all of you. Law enforcement on our city streets are generally from the military side of their lives. And I think that there's an awful lot of rudeness still going on in our society at large, where that respect is not being paid attention to. And especially in these times, I find that my voice needs to get increasingly bigger to show that respect towards you all, because you have been the very freedoms that I so enjoy. And to our children who are listening, when you see anyone in uniform, please tip your hat, say thank you, push them up to the front of the line, buy them a coffee, and give them a standing ovation. I think we take for granted our freedoms in this country. We have become complacent, as we have seen since 9/11, that we don't know many of the very fallen heroes by name, and which is why I embarked on creating a 21-car salute to America and her heroes. I can continue on with this conversation, but it's about integrity, it's about respect, and it's about honoring those that have gone before us and stand in front of any enemy to make sure that we have the freest land and that we have the gift of family and hugs and love that we can spend our days on earth enjoying.
No, and that's I love what you just said there, and it's so true because, in particular, you know, Patrick and I have talked about this previously numerous times. That I'm a huge supporter of not just the men and women in the military service, but our men and women in blue. And but we're starting to see a problem now, even within that, because we have abusers in government who utilize and abuse law enforcement. And they've done it so much so that we're starting to see a drop off of the good police officers quitting, just walking.
You know, to me, it's all very shameful the way we are treating each other. I make it a big point to say to every family, you live in your neighborhood, please walk out your front door with your children in tow and knock on your next door neighbors and introduce yourselves. When you know each other's first names, you will not fight over that parking space in front of your homes. It starts there at the ground level with all of us. And that's the way my father brought me up. He said, Kevin, you open a door for a lady. That's the way you give back to your society with manners. And, you know, I have a nonprofit called Fueled by the Fallen, but our very motto is, let's remind our children of 7 forgotten words. Yes, sir. No, sir. Please. And thank you. We don't follow these traits any longer. We don't really instill them in our children any longer. I mean, you can walk to Walmart, you can walk to any Target, and you just see nonsense abound. People don't care the way they park their vehicles. They will slam your door into your vehicle and cause you a $1,300 bill later on in life. They don't know how to put a shopping cart back. These are the simple courtesies that we can all enjoy in our lifetime. And I'll tell you what, it's great when you actually put a smile on a stranger's face by doing something of yesteryear's traditions. It really is fantastic. Kids, give it a shot. You're going to love it.
Well, it's etiquette and courtesy is what you're talking about. Nobody teaches it anymore. I taught it to my kids. And my daughter, for being a little shit that she can be sometimes, all three of my kids are funny. And they're all artists, by the way. I raised them to embrace their artistic side because I'm an artist by trade. And but there's always that yes, sir. I beat that into. Well, I didn't physically beat it into her, but she would talk to me. There was this moment she would come home and she would go say something almost like she was going to say, "Dude," and I would just turn and look at her and I said, "What?" And she would, "Sir."
I do have a saying that it kind of dovetails on what you're saying there, Kevin. Is if you're gonna make war on your cops, you better make friends with the criminals. They don't really want any friends, because
that's what you're really doing. And
that's exactly
and that's
what you're doing.
We're seeing such a failure in this country. It's in Canada too. I feel bad for Canada right now.
Yeah, no.
I have a lot of friends up there, man, and it's just they're horrified. We've seen police officers that have been used by the crazy. I don't refer to them as liberals because I'm pro-liberal. I have a lot of liberal friends. What I'm not is pro-leftist, and we're seeing leftism in a way that's horrifying, where they've turned the police officers in Canada into jackboots. And that's upsetting to see that in Canada. And,
it's happening the world over. And I think, if I was to place any blame, I would say our television is one of man's greatest inventions, but I also think it could be his demise as well. We are flattered when we impersonate others. And so I'll start with Robert De Niro and Joe Pesci and Martin Scorsese in some of the wonderful films they have made. But we walk out of those theaters and we begin to do our impersonation of what we just learned. And so tradition and etiquette and courtesy goes right out the window when we come out and we say, "Hey, I'm going to stab your mother through the fucking heart with a fucking pencil." And we learn that and we think it's cool for the moment to impersonate that language. But then we traditionally take it on and we make it our lifestyle, which is why you end up with road rage, because we think we are better now. And we turn to a police officer who's just pulled us over and we try to insult him by going, "What's your name and what's your badge number? I'm going to have your job tomorrow morning." This is not the way I was brought up. We would be pulled over by that same officer when I was growing up and would be, "Hello, officer. Nice to see you. What do you need to explain to me?" And yes, sir, I'm listening.
I know because I was friends with almost all the cops in my hometown.
Yes.
I knew a lot of them by name. They're related to people I grew up with too. And so there was this direct connection. And it was always, "Yes, sir," always showing respect.
Yes.
And we just don't see that anymore. People just don't teach respect anymore. Yeah. And I wouldn't say everybody, it's just, but it's general. In general, you just don't see that being taught to kids these days. But, parochial school, public school, whatever you want to call it, they don't teach it there anymore either. It's about showing how special you are. And it's like when cold, hard reality hits you when you're in your 20s, that, wait a minute, I'm not special?
Right?
No. You have
gotta read
value.
Gotta read this comment here. "The police let me go a few times just because I was being honest."
Kingsport
and polite.
Cal.
Yeah,
we do have a live chat, by the way, Kevin.
That does happen when they're honest and polite. Then it's like, okay, I can find somebody else to give a ticket to.
Yes.
And I will tell you, one of the worst things I ever did was I hated giving tickets. It was terrible. Everybody's mad at you and everybody blames you. I got a guy coming out of Beverly Hills that said I was giving him a ticket because he was rich. I got a guy told me, give my car a parking ticket because I'm gay. Well, how would I know you're gay? By looking at your car,
Right.
So
Right.
I hated giving tickets, but yes, if you're polite and you're honest, you got a break from me. That's true.
Absolutely. I just real quick, I got pulled over by a buddy of mine. He was a county sheriff's deputy, and I was speeding trying to get my buddy home because he was late. His dad was a big Marine. And I just loved his dad. And I'm like, "I can't get you home late. I got to get you on time." So I sped through the neighborhood, and one of the deputies pulled me over, and he walked up, and it was my friend. And he looked at me and was, oh, and he was so mad at me. He goes, "Gary, oh my God. I said, no. I deserve it. I was going fast. Give me the ticket. He goes, you know, I can't give you the ticket. God damn it. My girlfriend will never forgive me, because our girlfriends were friends. He goes, God damn it, slow down. And he walked away from me so mad.
You know,
Hey, boss.
there's so many of you that actually have these kinds of attitudes. You're just real people and very down to earth. And when you do come across somebody who's just honest with you, you wear your hearts on your sleeves, and you give them that warning, and you allow them to move on in life. And there are those others that are just about the nonsense, and therefore you have to be who you have to be. And I think if people just would grow up in their own minds and stop thinking they're obviously not as special as we all want to believe we are, we would be a better companion in our neighborhoods, so to speak. But I think a lot of this trouble has become because fathers have left their families behind. And my father was very much instilled in me, Mr. Howard, young boy, son, Kevin, you're going to learn how to wash out a toilet today. And I go, what, Dad?
Yeah.
He goes, yeah, you're going to wash the toilet out today. Well, Daddy, can I have gloves to wear? No, son. We're going to do it with our bare hands. And there's a reason he did this. He was saying to me, son, you are no better than anybody else. And one day you may be married, and one day you may have children. And I don't want you being a lazy husband and father and waiting for the job that you want to have. But there may come that job where you may have to put your hand in that toilet to feed your family. And that's what you need to do as a man, is stand up and be that father, that husband that will do anything to make sure their family is taken care of. A lot of that has gone out.
Amen.
You know.
Amen, Kevin. And by the way, I just want to bring up my daughter again, because she can be a real shit sometimes. She was 15, and I was just trying to get her to learn how to wash dishes. She's terrible at it. She still is terrible at washing dishes. And she's in there. She goes, "You're just using me for slave labor."
Oh.
I remember when she said that to me. I said, "If you were a slave, my dear, I would whip you to death because you're useless."
Oh my God.
And then later I told her, I said, "You better date somebody like me that washes dishes, that likes washing dishes, because you're going to kill somebody, if not yourself, one day, because you're terrible at it."
Yeah.
But everything else with her, she really took to. She learned to cook. I taught her how to cook. I raised her by myself, by the way, Kevin.
Oh, congratulations.
And it was a thing I had to do. And I'm proud of it. I'm proud of her. And like I said, all my kids, just like you did with your dad, learned from me, became artists, and that's what they do. My daughters, both my sons are artists by trade, and I support everything they do.
Congratulations.
And she, in general, is also, although I poke fun at my boys, I said, she's my favorite for a reason.
Well, congratulations on a good family raised, and that's why we're having these conversations.
We all need to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's part of the fabric of our foundation, and we cannot leave it behind if we want to walk into our future. So,
absolutely. And by the way, Kingsport, Cal, we have not addressed. We have a great chat. I want to say hi to everybody who's all here today. Martin Boosh McFadden is here. Anima Confusa, love of my life. Daniela is her real name. She hates being called that. Connie Cleary is here. Lester San Jose, the Skeptic Tank. We get some weird names from some of these people, Kevin. Andy Morrow from England is here. Peter Vinkman Fansite, also known as Vinkman's Girl on Twitter. Reed by nature. Kingsport Cal, his name is Cal. He's a Southerner. He's a good Southerner. And of course, Shrek PMC is here. All live and in the chat. And I'm going to look, see, do we have any questions from him for Kevin?
Question now about there's a comment.
There's a lot of greetings for you, Kevin. They're saying, hello, Kevin. Welcome to the show. These, we usually, on Saturdays in particular, we have a dedicated group of people that just like to pop in and see what's going on in the show. And then we have a bigger, wider audience that watches us over the next 72 hours and the restreams. But I got to, what's this? Thanks, you jerk. Call me Danny. I told him your real name, Anima. Jesus. I don't even call her that. I call her Anima, which is Latin. It's not even her name, but that's what I call my girlfriend because I'm just so used to it. But that's why I got interested in her, is because her name is Anima Confusa, which means the female aspect of the masculine mind confused. That's what her name means. The feminine aspect of the male mind confused. I'm like, how can I not fall in love with somebody with that nickname?
Right.
So you are in Canada. You have tried a commercial. You have done stage, one play. Where was it when it really kicked in?
I was 20 years old, and odd story. It was New Year's Eve, and it was also my mother's birthday. I hadn't seen my brothers and sister for a few months at that point, but my mother asked me to come over to her house and help her move furniture around for the evening New Year's Eve party and her birthday. I'm sitting across from my sister, who I hadn't seen, and my sister looks at me. She goes, "How are you, Kevin?" And in this demeanor, in this attitude, this wonderfulness, I said to her, "I'm doing good." And all of a sudden, I found myself running to the bathroom like a little girl and breaking up in tears. And I had no reason why. And I'm standing there before the mirror, and I'm bawling all of a sudden, and I don't know why. I clean myself up. I wipe my tears. I walk back out. I sit back down in my chair. My sister looks at me. She says, "Kevin, are you okay?" And I go, "Yeah, Kim, I don't know what that was about." And the very next moment, I burst into tears again. And I went back to the bathroom, and I looked myself in the mirror, and I had never had these thoughts ever before. But now I'm talking to myself in the mirror's reflection, and I'm answering myself. I go, "What's going on, Kevin?" "Well, you're supposed to go to California." I go, "What do you mean California? I've never even thought about going to California. What am I going to do in California?" "Well, you're going to go be an actor." I go, "What? This is crazy land." I had that conversation. I walked out of the bathroom. I looked at my sister and I said, "I don't know why, but just the strength of my personality has just told me that I'm on my way to California. Mom, I'm sorry. I got to go. I can't even help you move furniture." And I jumped in my car and I crossed that border 132 miles away from my city. Didn't even look at a map, never desired to go to California ever, and found myself crossing the border at exactly midnight New Year's, and traveled straight to Los Angeles, arrived. But I'll tell you this, gentlemen, every mile I had incurred in that journey, it felt like I was really coming home to something that was very familiar. And here's the funny part of it all. I drive up in front of Man's Chinese, not ever knowing or ever hearing about this building and what it exists for. And I roll my window down and I say to some passerby, "Hi, I'm looking for Hollywood Boulevard. Do you know where it is?" And they laughed at me and they said, "You're honest." I go, "What?" He goes, "Yes, this is Man's Chinese Theater." And I go, "Well, what is that?" And then lo and behold, years later, I have two films that play at Man's Chinese Theater. So
well, I know one was Full Metal Jacket. What was the other one?
The other one, I believe, was Death Wish 2.
Death Wish 2.
And the marquee was fantastic. We'll get into that later if you like.
What year was that again, Kevin?
1982 was Death Wish 2, and 87 was Full Metal Jacket. Yeah.
All right. Wow.
So I guess destiny had found its guy, sent me on my travels, and there I was making the history I've accomplished. And
did you have trouble finding an agent, or did you get hooked up pretty quickly?
No, I got hooked up pretty quick. I did. I was in a very wonderful class, Alan Lander's acting workshop. And we had people like Greg Evagon, BJ and the Bear. We had Mick Jagger's wife. She would wear her $300,000 earrings to class and pull up in a Rolls Royce. And because of these kinds of young actors in the class, obviously Paramount Studios would be paying attention to the jet-setting crowd, I called it. Reed Smith and from the series called Chisholms. So we had George Maharis would walk in and teach one of our classes. I mean, these were
fucking George Maharis.
Oh yeah, I love this man.
Oh, I love George Maharis, man.
We became best of friends. We really did. He just passed away, but I loved him dearly. He was always a mentor to me. In fact, mentored me on Full Metal Jacket, that script. And yeah, I miss you, George. You're a good man, brother.
What an actor.
Yeah.
I over the years, because I'm also the founder of the Blade Runner fan club, and I got to meet a lot of the cast and crew, and including, if you said my name to Ridley Scott, he knows who I am.
Yeah.
Just one of those weird things. But I got to be close friends with an actor named Morgan Paul. Did you ever meet him?
I did not.
What a guy. And we lost him about 10 years ago. It broke my heart when he passed away. But he was one of those actors too, just down to earth, very grounded. And his daughters, I'm friends with his daughters to this day. Just great family, raised them well. They went into one went into acting, and the other one went in as a model. And I think she's done a little acting now too. But speaking of that, I want to point out something. Nobody does dry heaves better than you. I shit you not. You are the best dry heaver I have ever seen in anything. And if nobody believes me,
boy, did I pay a price for that one.
Here you go. Here you go.
Get some! Get some!
Get some!
Right?
And that gentleman was Vietnam War vet too. He was the original actor.
He's actually a Marine himself.
A Marine, and he was supposed to be gunny sergeant in the drill scenes, and he got replaced by Arlie Ermy. Who took no prisoners. He wanted that role, and
he did. Arlie Ermy sat me down in one of the early days of being on set, and me and Sal Lopez, and he had said to us both, he said, Stanley's going to need 300 guys to play Marines, the extras. And so I'm thinking of saving Stanley some time. I can get a video camera, and then I will point to Stanley on screen and go, use this guy, this guy. Oh, this guy's good too, Stanley. And what he was really doing was auditioning for Stanley on film, because Stanley was not going to give him that part. They had already talked many a time about Arlie begging for that part. But it wasn't until Arlie put himself on film, and then Stanley looked at that film, tore the script in half, and said, put the camera on Arlie, let's go.
Yep, and it's he used pure psychology on him.
Yeah,
that he did it so much to the point where he couldn't see anybody else in that part.
Yeah.
It's pure psychology, and of course the actor, I forget his name right now offhand, but he did a one-man show talking about all that.
Yes,
and I've always wanted to see that, never gotten to see it because he's a fascinating dude, and I love veterans. We have so few veterans in Hollywood anymore. Military veterans, and he's one of them. And I love when I see somebody who's served their military. Like Adam Driver impresses me a lot. Until recently, when he attacked that questioner, making fun of him, says "fuck you." Next question. Did you guys see that? That was I'm like,
no.
And I'm like, that's not good military daring.
Some of his latest films, and he's very, very talented.
Oh, he is.
Yeah,
and he knows how to carry a weapon. And but there you go. That's the next question. Is like Dale Dye made it famous that he does boot camp for actors to teach them how to be soldiers. What did they do with you guys?
Stanley had brought in Arlie, obviously our technical advisor, and Arlie just put us through the paces. However, Rafterman was very lucky to not be a part of that, and that's because he was the new guy, and you didn't want him to be so structured yet in the rooting of boot camp. And so Stanley left him out of that scenario. Thank God, because I'm not one for exercise or push-ups, you know. But that being said, Stanley had used Arlie to really get these guys in shape and feel the power of what a gunny should be about, is about, what Arlie was about.
And that's something that he and Dale Dye shared, by the way.
Yeah,
that goal. And
I'll say this about Arlie, you know, what a down-to-earth human being, and he just cared about all of his fellow man in uniform, especially. He would give and give and give. We miss him, but I said this. We just did a ribbon cutting up in Palmdale, where his family lives, where he lived, and they created a street, renamed it Arlie Ermy Avenue, and you can drive your vehicle along that pavement, and the pavement strikes your tires, and it is called Musical Road, and it plays the Marines hymn beautifully off of the car tires at 45 miles an hour. So anybody who wants to just go enjoy that moment, take off for Palmdale, stop off at Bravery Brewery. That was also his partnership in a brewing company where you can get a gunny beer. And sorry for the blast out there, but tourism is going to go through the roof. I know it is.
Now, before we continue, I would like to show this image that is related to your activities,
Oh, there we go.
Fueled by
Fueled
the
for the
Fallen.
Fallen. Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
And I would like to say to our audience, in a moment, I will share with you the links to the X account and the Facebook page, so you can go on and see what it is all about. And before you're muted, boss, you're muted.
Oh, did you mute me, you little bastard? Anyway,
Oh,
thank you very
no.
much, Kevin, for doing this. It's such an honor to see someone doing that.
You know, Martin, thank you very much, Martin, for bringing that up. And you know, I'm glad this is not lost in yesteryear's history. For those who don't know what those cars were, they were two cruisers that were built by me and my lovely wife, Tiffany. And they carry all the names of those that paid the ultimate sacrifice in the line of duty. And the reason why I did it is I think the automobile is an incredible canvas to paint with, and that our children need to know the sacrifices made by all of you. And the only way I could garner that attention was to use the automobile and say, read these names and understand why they're on these vehicles as they travel through America, to recognize those that came before us, that gave us today's freedoms. And that's what part of the 21 car salute. So the names on those cars are done in gold with rank and service. And those are my end of watch vehicles, spurred on by a great gentleman I have met who's become a very, very, very close friend, Deputy Mike Askeles. He was the gentleman that came to me and said, Kevin, I love what you're doing, and I need to do it for my peeps as well. So those cars were born because of Deputy Mike Askeles. And Chief, thank you very, very much for darning your uniform.
Can you put him back up again, Martin?
Yeah.
Sure.
Wow. And
So this is, so we can clarify, it's all the men and women killed in LA County,
yes,
serving the community in law enforcement capacity. So not just the Sheriff's Department, LAPD, all
Yes.
the agencies
All
Since-
forms, yep.
since 1850.
Since
So
1850, yes.
it's a great honor.
Thank you. It was my privilege to do that for all of you, and it's my awakening call for all the kids who are going to inherit this great flag. You need to know your history before you can walk into your future, and these are a great tribute to all of you. Thank you so much.
And before I show the next clip, I do want to ask you, because you brought that up, and you said our flag. Did you become an American citizen, or are you still Canadian?
I was born a dual citizen. I did not know that till the age of 18.
Really?
When I applied for citizenship, and my father was actually an American. My mother was Canadian. And so I was given that honor right out of birth. And
That's fantastic.
yeah.
So you were born an American and
Yes,
Canadian.
yes,
Two great countries, man. That
Yeah.
go great together.
yes.
I've met quite a few during the first Gulf War, Canadians. And a lot of people don't know this, and we've talked about it ad nauseum on this show, because on Mondays we do Military Monday, where we talk about either a military series or a film. And the Tears in the Sun is actually a story about the Canadian Special Forces back in the late 80s that went into South America to fight, to get these people out and to fight against rebels and drug dealers, the drug gangs. And they just switched it over to the Congo for the movie. But it's the same story. Everything pretty much happens all the way up until the end. Then they made some Hollywood stuff at the end, because none of the team died.
And Gary, I would be remiss if I didn't thank you for your service as well, publicly. What was your rank in the Army?
I came out as an E2.
All right.
I lost the rank.
Just thank you very much, and welcome home, sir. My family does not take lightly what you do for all of us.
It was, well, first of all, when people thank me here, I always go, man, don't think somebody had that much of a good time in the military. It was too much fun. Don't thank me for having fun. I was a combat medic, and it led to a funny moment that I think you'll be amused by when we're at formation and Top yells out, best shot in the goddamn company is a goddamn pacifist. And I'm like, wait, I'm the best shot in the company. I'm not and my hand went up. He goes, what do you want, Kissel? I said, are you referring to me, First Sergeant? He says, yes, I am. I said, I'm not a pacifist. I'm a conscientious objector. He says, what's the difference? I said, oh, if you slap a pacifist, they'll just offer you the other cheek, pull a gun on them, they'll let you shoot them. I said, you pull a knife on me, I'll shoot you and then sleep really good the next night. I just won't be ordered to shoot. And he was really confounded by it. He goes, thanks.
Hey, boss,
yeah, man.
before I run the slideshow, I think we will only have the slideshow in the back.
I don't think we should even bother with the slideshow.
Yeah.
I've got
I'm
more
gonna
clips than this guy. I want to play.
Let me run it.
No,
It took me a sweet time to make it.
No. I'm not
Well,
you, Martin.
Well, at least let me show this clip.
What's my middle name? My middle name is Richard. That means I'm a dick. So no, I'm not.
Okay.
And I do want to play this real quick though, because I just think this is great. That entire helicopter scene is one of my favorite moments in the book, because it is from the book. Yeah. And I was glad that he got that role, because it is a memorable role. But your reaction to that guy ongoing throughout the scene is constantly dry heaving.
Yeah.
Because you're so grossed up by the fact that he's murdering people.
Yeah. That's
as you're flying by.
Yeah. He's shooting women and children. It's just, wow.
How can you shoot women and children? You just don't need them as much. Those kinds of guys I met in the military freak me out. I'm like, yeah, I want nothing to do with you. But they're so far and few between. Most of the guys I served with were great soldiers. But this guy, trippy.
Anyone who runs is a BC. Anyone who stands still is a well-disciplined BC.
It was interesting when I did that shot and I began to dry heave, and Stanley just went, oh, that's great. But Stanley likes to shoot 380 takes of everything.
Oh, wow.
And I found
that wasn't in the script, because it's not in the book either.
No.
Rafterman isn't reacting to much to anything.
Yeah. But 3 weeks of that dry heaving, I tore my muscles, my groin muscles. I couldn't even walk. And
you're really doing it. You can see the redness in your face.
Yeah. I paid a price for that one. But again, I think it was the truth at that point that Rafterman realized what was being said, and certainly was not happy with the quotient, and he reacted accordingly. And there we go. Beautiful moment.
And again, I want to point out that this is one of the few things I've seen you in where you got to see you a little bit in there.
Yeah.
Because there is almost a country boy feel to him.
Yes.
And he's all excited about going out here in the field, and the first experience to seeing people slaughtered.
Yeah.
He's fighting, throwing up.
Yeah. And it was also interesting too, Stanley did not know this about me, but I was a photographer, well-recognized photographer in Hollywood. I did headshots for actors simply because when I arrived in Hollywood, an agent said, you need to get headshots. And I said to her, send me to the best photographer you've got. She jolted back in her chair and she said, Kevin, no actor ever asked for the best photographer, but here's a name and number. I went and got my headshots made. I got them back. I looked at my agent and I said, so what do you think of this? She goes, well, those are excellent, Kevin. I go, really? Wow. Okay. And then I asked a very important question. Based on the framework of the question, I put her on the spot by saying, would you spend $100,000 to make this a billboard on Sunset Boulevard? And she said, well, no, I wouldn't. I go, exactly. I'll see you in a couple of days. I'll create my own headshot and I'll bring it back to you. And I brought it back to her, believing I understood what a good headshot should be comprised of for a Steven Spielberg to pay attention to. I brought it back to her. She said, Kevin, I can't use this. I go, why not? And she goes, Kevin, we are the film capital of the world. You're just a little boy from Canada. I think we know more about this business than you do. And I said, listen, I am my ship's captain. If I fail, it'll be on me. but I don't want it being on you. So you are going to use this because I know it's worthy of that billboard on Sunset Boulevard. After an argument, she said, I'm going to prove you wrong. She sent my picture out to Paramount Studios that morning. Within a half an hour of it arriving, she got a phone call from a director who said, who the fuck shot Kevin? I have never seen anything like this in this town ever. You tell Mr. Howard that he's got his first film with a big director and big motion picture stars. I look forward to meeting him. My agent turned to me and she said, guess what? And I said, I got a job, didn't I? And she said, yeah, how did you do that? And I said to her, how did you not know to do that? You are not going to fool Steven Spielberg, who has literally shot millions of frames of photography, by trying to seduce him with bad photography. You're not going to get it accomplished. And I think Stanley recognized that ability in me. And he said, hey, Kevin, since you're working in my film, here's some film, load up your cameras and shoot within the scenes. Became part of a script picture book of Full Metal Jacket. So yeah, there was that synergy as well with Rafterman and Kevin knowing how to use that camera.
Did you like working with Matthew?
I did. I loved it.
He's an actor's actor. He likes to help other actors.
You know, Gary, I always tell people he is the Jimmy Stewart of our contemporary times. He is unassuming. He's so talented. He makes it look so easy, but he's always spot on with where he's taking you on his journey as that artist. Yeah, a big fan of Matthew's. I had seen Birdie before I got a chance to work with him, but while I was sitting in the theater watching Birdie with him and Nicolas Cage, I looked up on that screen, and very seldom I ever said that I had to work with somebody, but Matthew was one of those I was destined to hopefully work with, and found myself standing in a wardrobe trailer one day, not knowing he was cast as Joker, but Stanley was sitting there, I was sitting there, and all of a sudden Matthew walked in. I went, you got to be kidding me. So yeah, I'm a big, big fan.
Yeah, he and D'Onofrio have a background together,
yes,
being friends.
Yes.
But have you ever heard the Oliver Reed, Matthew Modine story?
I have not. Share.
Okay, I'll tell it to you real quick. He was on Conan one night and he told this story. And they bleeped part of what he talked about, but it's funny as hell. He was working with the director and he's working with Oliver Reed. And he says, I've always wanted to meet Oliver Reed. So he says, well, he's over at this bar. We'll go over there. And they walk back to this
good idea.
big round table. Oliver Reed's sitting with a bunch of people and he's just laughing. And the director says, go and sit over there. So he sat over to the left of Oliver Reed and did a semi-introduction, but Oliver Reed's busy telling a story. And then finally, at some point during one of his stories, he just stops talking. Oliver Reed does. Turns and gives Matthew Modine the funniest look and flattens him, knocks him out of the chair onto the floor, just plows him right in the face. And like, why did you do that? And the director's like, that's Matthew Modine, the actor. He goes, oh, sorry, my boy. I thought you were a spy.
The what?
It's not over yet. So he gets back in his seat, and Oliver feels bad that he decked him. So the director told Oliver that he had a question he's been really wanting to ask him. He says, okay, what's your question, boy? Ask. So he asks him, he says, is it true that you have eagle talons tattooed to the end of your penis? And Oliver Reed just stands up in the middle of a fucking bar in New York City, drops trousers, yanks his fucking Johnson out in front of everybody, grabs, because he's not circumcised, and he squeezes it like a stress toy where the eyeballs pop out, squeezes it until the head pops out. Right in Modine's face. And there on the end of his penis are the talons tattooed on the end of his dick.
I had a very dear actress friend by the name of Jordana who actually worked on a film with Oliver Reed, and Oliver Reed had gone to his tattoo artist that day, and he walked back to the set and he absolutely displayed his Johnson on the table while they were all having their lunch break and said, what do you think of my eagle? I heard that story from Jordana herself. She looked over and she went, oh my God, I can't believe we're sitting. And yeah. So,
and there it is, right out in the open.
You never know.
I thought you'd find that funny.
But you backed up part of that story that Jordana told me that day.
It's totally true, and it is true. I've read it.
Wow.
As well as Matthew Modine told that story on Conan O'Brien one night, and I'm just like, I was slayed. I was laughing so hard. Like, when he described it as a stress doll, when he squeezed it and head popped out, I'm like, oh my God, what a great description. But I want to get back to our chat. They are writing a lot of things. So one question came in from Kingsport, Cal, our good friend from the South, says, who's the biggest star, and I would say film, stage, television, that you ever got to work with? And there's the question.
Oh my God. You know, the trifecta question comes up again, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The biggest star, who was I probably, this is such a toss-up. Is it Frank Sinatra? Is it Clint Eastwood? Is it Charles Bronson? Or is it Stanley Kubrick?
And he wasn't just a movie star. You know, Frank Sinatra was this great music artist too.
Yeah. I don't know that I can really answer that without jumping as I just did from one to the next.
Yeah.
It's not often. In fact, there was a website dedicated to Kevyn Major Howard that I'm the only common denominator that has ever worked with all four of those gentlemen. So it's difficult to answer at best. I would probably lean on Clint Eastwood and also James Caan. Funny enough, now that
Wow.
I revisit the question, and I'll tell you why I'm going to answer James Caan. When we were doing Alienation, Mandy Patinkin and James Caan, we were sitting in a tunnel waiting for a shot where I'm going to get into a fight with James Caan's character. And it began to rain in East LA. The graffiti abound. And we're in this tunnel being protected from the rain. And there's about 100 of us, the crew and cast, waiting for the rain to subside. And don't you know, James Caan, the movie star, grabbed an umbrella, a black one, and he jumped out into the rain and he sang, singing in the rain. and he was a movie star.
He could sing
He
too.
was really a
Caan could
movie
actually
star
sing.
doing this. And Mandy Patinkin, who's got the gift of voice, tagged right behind him, and here were two giants with their umbrellas, and the rain was falling. It was backlit. It was like a reincarnation of the movie itself. And we all found ourselves, our jaws were dropped. These movie stars were doing what movie stars do. And James Caan, I would have to say, is one of those throwback movie stars. He's been around forever and done some great, talented films.
Well, something you may not know about James Caan is he is the co-father of the modern buddy cop movie. He and Alan Arkin did a little film called Freebie and the Bean, where he is again a hilarious racist.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm like, when I watched Alienation, I'm like, he's playing the same character. It's the exact same character he played with Freebie and the Bean. I loved it. I love that. And it is nothing more than a buddy cop movie where they flip the race thing into species, you know, and drugs with detergent. You know, it's like, it was really, I thought it was one of the most clever things about Alienation is how they handled modern problems and turned it into science fiction. And you go back freely.
You go back to Freebie and the Bean, and I remember seeing that as a child, as a young teenager. They had such a chemistry. Alan Arkin was wow.
Funniest scene in the history of film is that car going through the apartment wall.
Right.
I still laugh at that every time I see it.
Yeah.
It's just like, that is insane. And then he looks at the envelope to see the address, gives the address, and then he has to open the door to see what floor he's on, third floor. Can you send a tow truck?
Yeah. What I'll say about James Caan is this, you know, I got to work with him in his later years, and he is just as big a talent as you'll ever find.
Did you get to work with him more than once?
Yeah, no, just that one film, just that one film.
Just one.
And I was in Milton Casellas's class. His wife, his ex-wife, I guess, was also in the class. So I had a little bit of familiarity with him there. But James Caan was more comfortable, believe it or not, in front of the camera than he was off camera. Off camera, he was awkward. He was a little insecure, but he'd get before that camera. Boy, he just loved being there, and he was so human, and he was so down to earth. And
because he wasn't him anymore, and I understand actors that do that.
And he was one of those actors that, even though he was not in front of the camera, if you had lines with him, he would ask to be brought to the set so he could do his lines off camera for the actor.
That impresses me when you have actors willing to do that.
Who does that?
Very few will do that. If they're movie stars, they tend to not want to do that.
Yeah.
But you'll run into them occasionally, and you'll have them off camera reading lines to the other actor.
And not just reading lines. I mean, giving you a performance. It's one thing to read lines off camera. It's another thing to give you your performance. And he was that kind of thespian, and I truly applaud him for that.
That's fantastic. Another one here from Kingsport, Cal. Also, Kevin, my dad loved Alienation. I remember him and my brother watching it. They also loved Star Trek. I just shook my head and buried my nose in a comic. That's sad. That's just tragic.
What I'll say to you is this: King's Portugal, is that it?
Kingsport, Cal.
All right, Kingsport, Cal. Last night I said to my wife, the only Christmas present I want, and she was looking it up on the internet. She found it. It was actually the comic book of Alienation. And the reason why I want it is simply because I love to see myself in a comic book. And so it exists. And the Christmas present only cost her $6.08.
Do you still have it?
No, I'm getting it this Christmas.
Goodness.
Oh, that's this Christmas.
Oh, it's this Christmas. I'm getting
that is awesome, dude. That's like
been
if they
good,
had an
then.
action
You've
figure
been
based
good.
on Rudyard Kipling. And by the way, Martin, couldn't understand. I don't understand, boss. What is so funny about the name Rudyard Kipling? I'm like, one, nobody has that name.
Yes.
And that's funny. Because Rudyard is a funny name.
We're going back to those places my father, early on in this conversation, the omen to my future. By the way, he made me read Rudyard Kipling, and he would call me Rudyard Kipling as a child growing up. So to end up being this role worthy of Rudyard Kipling was very fun for me, and it was my way of saying up to the heavens, Dad, I get it. I miss you too.
Absolutely. And by the way, I also told him that I said, you do know where the name Rudy comes from, is Rudyard. We got another one here from Shrek PMC who says, no shit, Rafter Man, Full Metal Jacket, great stuff. People are excited to see that you're here today, man. They are. Thank
you. Listen, again, I'm blessed, and just thank you for having me in your company. I am privileged, and I don't take lightly that people have given me the ability to have a voice. So just thank you.
You're muted, boss.
You're muted.
You're muted. I'm mute when I'm not talking, just in case there's a noise. But anyway, no, we're honored to have you here, Kevin. Absolutely honored.
Thank you.
And I'm referring to Chief because I know he feels the same way of having you on this last Tuesday. And absolutely, again, if you've not seen that episode, go back and watch the Chief's episode this last week. Other ones, you don't have to go back and watch, but that one, watch.
That one is a special one in my heart too. Chief, I truly enjoyed the conversation, and having Deputy Mike Asclees on the show as well. We covered a lot of ground, and just thank you for your big smile, brother.
Oh, thank you. I know I'm going to have you on again. Death Wish 2 is a movie that's in the queue for me, so we'll bring you back and we'll talk.
It's going to be fun, man.
Charles Bronson, just one of my movie heroes, and he was a real tough guy in real life too. So
he is a
good guy.
I heard this incredible story about Charles Bronson the other day. I'll share it with you all now. But he came from poverty, and he had to work in the mines at a very early age. But it was interesting. Here is the man, the testosterone of the macho man and action hero of all film. And yet at 9 years old, he was wearing a dress. And the reason why he was wearing a dress was the family just didn't have money. And he had a sister, and you would pass those clothes down to the next youngin'. And so he wore a dress at an early age. And I thought it was just a fascinating dichotomy of who the man became.
Hey, boss, it's that time.
Oh, we have hit the top of the hour, and we have to do our little merch commercial. So take it away, Martin. Cool. Nobody cares. Oh, but it's Todd, and I can smell her fart all the way over here. But by the way, I got you laughing, Kevin.
Yeah, it did. It did.
I do that live. I actually
there.
turn on my mic and I just start saying stupid shit during the commercial. What did these young people have to say with them wearing our shirts? Let's see, Kingsport. Unfortunately, I know the real history of the flag and the people's lives that it took to make it. That's right. Our flag is a living flag. Our flag doesn't represent any government. It represents the people who have fought and served and bled for this country. That's what those colors mean, and it represents every individual state. So when people want to burn the flag, I look at them and I'm like, over what? You're protesting the lives of the people who died? What's your point? So there you go. But let's see, good times, bad times, mostly boring times in the military. I got to tell you, it's in the military, it's hurry up and wait, man.
Yeah.
Like somebody asked me, because I had to write a script with Dale Dye for City of Fire, the story of the Battle of Mosul back in 2004. And I wrote the first draft of the script. And people are like, how do you write a battle like that? It must be exciting. I said, it is 8 hours of sitting around not knowing what's going on and about an hour and a half of actual combat. Because half the time you're going, are they still in the building? So somebody stick your head out, see if you get shot at. And that's really what happened. They poke their head out. Next thing you know, snipers start going again. They're in there. Open up. You just start opening up with these machine guns. They're firing 50 cows. At one point, they had a sniper up in the minaret of the mosque. And all they had was a tow rocket mounted on one of the strikers. And so they got permission to fire a tow rocket. And it fired. The first one fired. And what they do is they go out, drop, and then the main rocket goes. And it takes it to where it's supposed to go. It does it up, down, and then up again. But it didn't fire correctly, so it ended up just sliding underneath a Volkswagen Beetle. It's just like somebody was like, make a note, we better tell that person not to start that car later. It's got a rocket under it. And the second one they got permission to fire a second one, took out the minaret and the sniper. I've got the actual video footage of it, but that was a lot of fun working with Dale Dye. It was one of the first things I ever did with Dale, other than designing their logo for their company, was writing a script with him. But war is boring for the most part. Like he said, it's a lot of sitting around not knowing what's going on. And then you have just these moments that are so intense that just seem to be the only thing you remember is that. And then somebody goes, well, what were you doing the rest of the time? Oh, sitting around drinking water, smoking, eating chow.
And it's that complacency that can kill you because you get lulled in the sense that nothing's going to happen, right? And that's where the discipline comes in. That's where the sergeants are walking around, making sure everybody's on their posts. It's that complacency that makes you vulnerable.
And when we wrote the script, the main character is the medic, which is why I wrote the first script as a combat medic, because the only person that's going to see everybody that day is the medic. He's going to see what everybody is doing. So he's all around, moving around all the time. And it led to a funny moment where he got shot at by the sniper and then he returned fire. And when he returned fire, he kicked open the air guard hatch on the back of the striker after being chased by the sniper. He's being just boom, 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 bullets hitting. He's running, dives into the back of the striker, opens that hatch and fires back in. He goes, and it causes the sniper to duck. And he goes, that's so fucking funny when it's you. And Dale liked that. That was one of my additions that I added that in there. The real medic didn't say that, but even he liked it. He goes, I should have said that. I went, yeah, I would have. I'm a smart ass. But we have some more stuff here. We had a former door gunner in our platoon, and he was in from 70 through 77, I think he said. He was very reserved and barely said a word. And that was a lot of the guys I knew in the military. The real warriors were quiet guys. They'd shit talk with you if you were friends. But the rest of the time, they were very quiet guys. Which goes to that whole thing of nobody had an idea he was a killer or a hero because he was so quiet. Then all of a sudden, he started killing everybody, or he jumped up and saved everyone. The quiet ones.
I had this guy that was working for me. He was a Marine, and he had been down south, top secret, as a door gunner. And one night he was working the field for me, but he was in the station. It was my first night as the watch commander for Carson Sheriff Station. And he's behind the bulletproof glass, just telling his wife goodbye. He's going to go in the field. And somebody comes in and shoots our desk deputy. And this Marine sees it. Well, he just hey, hold on, honey. Puts the phone down, goes out and engages this guy in a gun battle. 10 rings the guy, but the guy was still up, ready, and saves the guy, pulls the guy back behind the bulletproof glass because the guy had gotten shot between. It went through hit his arm and went through his pen set and through his other arm because he was turned towards the shooter, or sideways towards the shooter. And this guy just took action, shot it out with the guy, pulled the deputy to safety, and then went back out. I was popping the side door to take him out myself when this Marine finished him off just before I got to him. So Marines are steady.
I guarantee you, he broke that arm, didn't he?
Huh?
He broke that arm, didn't he? The one he got shot in.
You know, it's when I saw him, when I got to see the deputy got shot, you could see it went through and through the one arm, went through his pen set, and then on his right arm, it would have been his right arm. You could see the bullets. It hadn't gone completely through his right arm, but you could see it lodged in his right arm. He had to retire.
Wow. So often with those, as a medic, the minute we see it matters where it is, but if we see it hitting really center mass on the arm, we know the arm's broken, and we're going to have to splint the shit out of it too. But
he was that Marine was in the right place at the right time. Somebody with a little bit of combat experience. I ended up bringing him to work for me at another place. He was my administrative sergeant. Good, solid guy. Looked like a Viking though. Big, hulking guy.
Big, redhead, right? Ginger,
blonde guy.
Oh, blonde.
former linebacker in college football too. So he was huge. Good, solid guy.
Yeah. Yes. Most. There it is. Put it back up there. Most real warriors are quiet. They keep to themselves. Yeah. It's been my complaint about Conan when they did the updated Conan the Barbarian film. I said, you got Conan walking around like a 16-year-old girl on prom night, just not shutting up. Like, you can't do that. Real men warriors don't talk that way. But let's get into another clip here I want to play. This is the big change for Rafterman moment, where you have gone from noob to getting out there, starting to see shit, and now, and by the way, I want to point out, the only person celebrating in this moment is Rafterman.
Yeah.
And everybody else is like caught up in somber. And in the book, the line, it's said in the film, but I think that it just doesn't have the impact it did when I read the book. Because I read the book, I was 15, 14. The line, man, Joker, you're hardcore. And core is spelled Marine Corps. And that was what it meant, was you're hardcore. And it was such an important line, but it got kind of drowned out in the scene. But Rafterman, that's how Rafterman ends up becoming more of a central, more important character. And you deliver that fucked up line. It's like, what is it your character said? Something about ugly to Joker?
The Congressional Medal of Honor. I mean, Medal of Congressional of Ugly. Yeah,
that was it. You were just like fucking around laughing because you're high on the endorphins of what just happened, because you had to waste that female sniper. Your character, you nailed the scene really well.
Thank you.
But here's that clip, guys.
I saved Joker's ass. I got the sniper. I fucking blew her away. Am I bad? Am I a life taker? Am I a heartbreaker?
That is such an intense scene. It really is. And Joker, it's a big change for him too. But your character shows, in my opinion, the greatest character arc in the story. The entire film. Everybody's pretty much who they are.
Yeah.
Except
there's that line that gets talked about earlier when we're in the barracks, talking about the 1,000-yard stare. And I thought that that's where Rafterman made his transition into that moment, rotating back to the real world. He was changed. He was completely changed. And that 1,000-yard stare was going to come and haunt his ass. But that was that moment, I think, that
it's something I've seen with guys. It's a disconnect where there's like no focus. And I had to do a painting for one of Dale Dye's books that exhibited the 1,000-yard stare. And I found a famous photo and I used that as a reference when I did the painting, where it's like the eyes are just slightly, they're looking through you. They're not looking at you anymore. And it's just a mental exhaustion caused from combat, where you're just seeing too damn much. And I've seen guys like that. It's heartbreaking. I'm grateful I was never like that. I didn't see the one firefight I got in ended up, it was Marines. We were supposed to be moving like this, but they went at an angle with us. Imagine that, Marines not getting a line right. And they opened fire on us, and we returned fire. And then the Navy told us cease fire. That's friendly. It's friendlies. And nobody got really hurt. One of my guys got a splinter in the eye from what I think was an M60 round hitting a tree, and a 2-inch piece of wood went through his eyelid into his eyeball. And I had to have him medevaced out. That was it. Nothing else. And I pissed myself. Because the guy behind me, I didn't know it. He clotheslined me and he took me to the ground. I thought I'd been hit. And I'm laying on the ground thinking, oh man, first aid. Oh, fuck. And then I'm like, oh no. But then I noticed it was muddy where we're at, so nobody noticed the business. Oh, it's a true story because I embarrassed myself. But I want to point out something too with Clint Eastwood, because again, Charles Bronson, Frank Sinatra, Clint Eastwood, God, that scene in the elevator in Sudden Impact is one of my favorite moments with you. And I swear to God, I wanted to punch you in the face when I watched that movie. That's how good you are in that role. Yeah. And I'm going to show the clip now.
Hey, Callahan. Don't look so puked out. Better luck next time, fool.
Fool. I love that, dude. What a great delivery. How did did they get you to do that, or is that just something you did on your own to deliver it like
something
that?
I did on my own. It's interesting. I didn't get a chance to see the film when it was released, and here's why. I was so embarrassed when I finished that particular scene, that work, and I wasn't smart enough to figure out what really took place and why I was so embarrassed, but I could not see the film, and it wasn't until years later, after people walking up to me on the street going, Kevin, we saw you in that film. I love you in that elevator scene's great. And I just would think people were paying homage to the fact that I was that celebrity. Never took them seriously. I was invited to, years later, a gentleman owned the Pacific Theater chain. His son's birthday was that day, 13 years old. And he said, Kevin, I would love for you. We're going to be screening Sudden Impact with Mr. Eastwood. I would love if you would come be a moment for my son's birthday with me and him and yourself and watch the film. And because I hadn't seen it for years, I never saw it. I said I would do that. And as that scene was approaching, I remember sitting down in my chair a little smaller than and covering my eyes kind of deal, because I was embarrassed about the work. Well, then when I saw the scene, I actually sat up in my chair and went, oh, that wasn't so bad. It's pretty good work. It's truthful. It's honest. It's the moment. And then I realized what had taken place. Kevin was an actor on set, and the character became embarrassed by the moment of being thrown around by Mr. Eastwood in the elevator for his actions.
Yeah, you were embarrassed not of your work, but of the character.
Yes. And I couldn't separate the work, because literally when you walk off the set, you've walked off the set, the work is over. But the embarrassment still lived within me, not realizing it was the character's embarrassment. So, yeah, I really am very fond of that particular piece of work, because I hit the notes that needed to be hit and instinctually just gravitated back to the reality, which was the character was embarrassed, not Kevin.
Now, I will tell you, I'm a riffer. I'm a notorious riffer. And when I went to see that movie in the theater, and I would see it 3 times in the theater, but the first time I went to see it, I was with some of my buddies from high school. And in every single time Sandra Locke delivers, you remember that night under the boardwalk, every time she would do that, I would go, boardwalk, boardwalk. And people would laugh.
Yeah, but you got to expand upon that scene we just saw, Kevin. That we
there's
talked about
more.
on my show. Yeah, there's more. Oh, go
Can
ahead.
I show
Then.
just the other part?
Yeah.
Then I want you to finish. Because again, with the vomiting, the dry heaves, you get this redness in your face that it really sells the moment right here.
Listen, punk. To me, you're nothing but dog shit. You understand? And a lot of things can happen to dog shit. It can be scraped up with a shovel off the ground. It can dry up and blow away in the wind, or it can be stepped on and squashed.
Now, the big thing I have to ask you is, how was Clint's breath?
It was fine. It was fine. It was fine. He was in my face, and but again, that's the power of a great actor like Clint Eastwood. He will give you your performance. You just have to just be there with him.
Yeah, and you got red right here in this area.
I remember seeing that. Yeah, I that was the embarrassment creeping in at high velocity.
It was so good because you sell that moment.
Yeah.
So many people wouldn't do that. And I don't know, man. That's a little nuance of acting that you threw in there was really, really good.
My favorite part of the scene that I spoke with Chief about was when Clint throws me back across the elevator. I step on my partner's foot so harshly that you see the reaction in his face. And maybe Martin can bring up that reaction again. Martin, it was a great choice shot when you showed it to us last week.
Let me.
Yeah, if you can.
He's not prepared.
It's just a fascinating moment for that particular actor and how well he received my foot stomping at that moment.
Well, he stayed in character. Which
he did.
It's really
it was
good.
Genius.
Man.
It was truly genius.
Now, you were going to ask a question, Patrick. What was it?
Well, it's first of all, we talked about the shooting of the scene was actually shot in an elevator, which I thought, okay, how did that play out? Do they have a stage elevator? No, it was because that get pretty cramped, and yet there was enough room for him to do it.
Was it handheld?
Say again?
Did they do it handheld?
Yeah, he did do it handheld. And there were let me see, there was 3 of us cohorts. Then there was Clint Eastwood, then his lawyer, and then a lady standing in the shot. So when I look back, and it was actually the elevator from that actual courthouse in San Jose where it was filmed. So it isn't that big of a space, and yet we all seem to fit in there beautifully and not a problem. I don't remember anybody rubbing up against anybody, pushing anybody out of the way. The camera was not a burden.
That's interesting.
Confined space, but that's the way Mr. Eastwood works. He makes it look that simple. Yeah.
And what was the name of the actor whose foot you stepped on? That's the other.
We had it the
Kravitz?
other day.
Was it Kravitz?
Steve Kravitz, yes. Wonderful comedian as well. Very talented human being. I like him a lot. I miss him. I think we talked once since the filmmaking. So if you're listening, Steve, give me a shout back, would you, brother?
Here's the scene.
There he is.
Yeah, finish it.
Oh, yeah, there's Steve. Look at that beautiful face he's got.
Oh, my God. Yeah. That's not faking at all. He really felt it.
It's a scene stealer. Yeah.
All right. Our friend has just shown up, and we always play a little video for him. And his name is Tim.
By what name are you known?
There are some who call me Tim.
I'm not sure. Maybe. Tim?
We have a super chat from 6.
Hey,
no, a super sticker.
Super sticker. I don't know what it is. I can't see it here.
It's Shiba Inu saying hi.
Oh, well, thank you, 6. You're a sweetheart. We love you. And Anima Confusa and my girlfriend, they're buddies. So she loves it when she shows up. Did we get any questions? I don't want to miss any questions. Thank you, 6, so much for that. And I have a new video for you. Here you go. Perfect.
Do I threaten your masculinity, McLeod?
No.
If I threaten yours?
What a great line. What a great comeback.
I was 8 years old when that aired, and it stuck with me into adulthood. And I was 19 years old working at Wagner Metal Arts, an actual bronze sculpture factory. I was a mold technician. I knew how to make molds. And we had this new young feminist working in the office. We became very friendly with each other. But the first time I met her, she asked me that question. And I threw that line right back at her. I said, "No, do I threaten yours?" And I'm like, "Thank you, McLeod."
You know, it's funny just it's a time capsule when you just show Dennis Weaver's career in one shot. I remember and loved him in Steven Spielberg's The Duel.
Oh, yes.
Fantastic film. To all our youngins that are listening, if you have not seen Steven Spielberg's The Duel, find it, sit down, enjoy it. It'll be a great afternoon for you.
In many ways, I have said that is probably his best movie.
Yeah.
As far as story structure, theme, and overarching story and character arc.
Yeah.
That was his headshot. He had to make didn't he have to make an impression with that movie to get bigger movies, right? That was his headshot, so to speak.
That was Dennis Weaver.
Like you talked about headshots, that was his,
Yeah.
And Duel is just a great film. Glad you brought that up. But anyway, getting back to it, I do want to let me get back to the other stage here. Saturday Fun Time. I have more clips of you that I wanted to go over. And this is one of my favorites. There's so many shots of you in this episode, and I picked this one because this is where it's made clear that you're a good guy in the A-Team.
You may not believe this, but if we hang around here long and they catch us here, we'll all be killed.
I'm real glad Jenny's okay. I can't believe you guys came back for me.
You can't.
You're a good guy.
Yeah.
You're a slimy dick.
Yeah. It has been known to happen.
Occasionally, and I like that.
George Papard, again, one of our film favorites, Breakfast at Tiffany's, he's well known for, opposite Hepburn.
Also a veteran Marine.
Was he? I did not know. He had called me and asked me if I would do a guest star on his show because his son was very much a fan of Full Metal Jacket. And of course, obviously, I said yes. You don't turn down George Papard or that stature of a man in our business. You just don't. And
well, that leads to the next question: is did that open doors for you?
I don't think you can watch your own hair grow, so to speak. So I don't know, but I just know that it's one of my favorites and one of my favorite people to have worked with. He was a very kind film star, and he never imagined himself being bigger than what he really was. And he always treated you with a hug and a handshake and made you feel very welcomed and very comfortable. Was it a big opener? I think a lot of things, when you put them all together as a collective, each one of them had their moment to help advance my career. One of my very favorite films I ever did was a picture called Scared Straight, Another Story. I played a young 16-year-old boy being incarcerated in an adult prison and being raped for cigarettes to the point of committing suicide by hanging. But I love the piece itself because it was my way of saying to the young men out there, pay attention. You're only young once, and don't misstep in life because you'll pay a price. And if I can be part of that logic for you, so be it. I do remember there was a gentleman on the set, about 23 years old, African-American male, and he was complimentary of me being an actor in his home, Sean B. Scully State Prison. And he had asked me for my autograph, and I was a new actor at that point. So, of course, I said back to him, well, I'd like to have your autograph as well. And I said, I know just what we can sign it on. I make license plates as this character in this Arizona State Prison, and I'll give you a license plate and a Sharpie. And I took mine and I signed my name. and we began to exchange our license plates for each other. And all of a sudden, my world was rocked. And I'll tell you why. Nothing but an X was signed on his license plate.
Hmm.
And I was about to say, you forgot to sign your plates. And then realized, Kevin, there are people in this world who are dealt a bad hand in life that they must play. And here you are facing off with a 23-year-old inmate who is the sweetest guy you'd ever meet, a real down-to-earth human being. And he was paying the price because somebody had never taught him how to write his own name. And therefore, it all ended up becoming a prison life sentence. And what a shame it was. And that's where, again, I come back to that father image in our families. This child was lost because maybe he didn't have that father to say, son, you're going to learn how to spell your name, and you're going to learn how to write your name. You're going to learn how to read a book. And we take this so for granted in our society. And yet, and I'm sure, Chief, you could probably expound on what the statistics are of these quotients are. So I'll just refrain from saying anything more. And if you have that statistic, I'd love to hear it.
I do. So I have a statistic that will help. So when I was in charge of inmate education programs in the county jail system, LA County, largest in the country, 60% of the people did not have a GED.
Wow.
Or a high school diploma. So very large numbers. And those are one of the, what they call, okay, everybody's going to go, what the hell is this guy talking about? That's one of the main criminogenic factors that cause people to stick with the life of crime. So
yes. Lack of education, right?
Lack of education. I mean, there's multiple ones, but that's one of them. Yes.
Because it limits the prospects. Absolutely. By the way, we have more people who have popped in. Bush McFadden is here. Bush. Admiral Teague is here. Live long and prosper. Of course, Six dropped in, and Monkajibas, thank you, come again, is here. And our good friend, Zax. Do you have the video ready?
Oh, yeah.
Hey, fuck you, Kyle.
Zax's real name is Kyle.
Martin,
I do that for friends of mine out in the audience. I will play mean videos to make fun of them. I just think
I got to tell you guys, you're very great at what you do. Your podcasts are beautifully produced. Martin, you are terrific at handling the back end of this job. And Chief, you introduced me to all of this on your show.
Yes. Yeah.
So my hat is off to you. I kept bragging all week. I'm going, these guys have their shit together. You got to watch this show.
What is another way of saying back end entrance? What is that called? Martin, do you know? Martin, do you have an idea what that's called? I think it's called a backdoor.
Open your back door, baby. Loosen your hinges, I'll show you my key.
We have a running gag that got started by another host of another show that's a good dear friend of mine, Polly from Latino Slant, and he referenced my my backdoor. My desire and love of backdoors or something, and it stuck. Backdoor Gary was the nickname I had for a while, and Six, who's in the audience, and Zax were the two who really made it into something, tagging it, putting it on Twitter, and so now it's a running joke that if somebody does it, and of course Kingsport Cal and Monkey Jeebus both have breached the back door,
and Bush.
And Bush.
Bush.
They love breaching the back doors because they get videos. So go ahead, Martin, play them some more videos. We're silly here. Don't take it seriously. That's how I go about it.
Like, wouldn't you know that back door would trigger a trap door?
Yeah, and look where we landed.
And this one is a favorite.
Strong. I'm gonna go check the back door. Back door.
Beavis and Butthead. We got one more, right?
Pam, why do you have underpants with a Swiss flag on them?
Swiss? Those aren't Swiss. Those are, they're from the Red Cross. They're defective. Anyway, me safe house, A2 safe house. I'm gonna check the back door.
They're from the Red Cross. They're defective. I miss that show. The last season was not very good. It's a sad way to go. Parrothead, goddammit. Now Parrothead did it. They'll do this. You got to stop them at some point. Well, this is the last one for right now. Go for it, Martin. Gary loves it in his back door.
Oh, this one.
Check around and see if there's a back door.
Don Rickles. Oh my God.
Don Rickles.
You can't lose with Don Rickles, man.
No, you cannot.
Did you ever watch those Dean Martin roast things when they?
Oh my God,
I watch those online occasionally. Those
never missed.
They're
one of those
irreverent.
Dean Martin roasts,
They're
ever.
certainly not for today. They're not woke, I guess, but they're just
John
craft.
Rickles
The
would never
comedian's
write
craft.
his zingers down. He
And
improvised.
they're just funny.
All of
and
those.
They're just funny guys.
And he was great with Johnny Carson. They just had the time of their lives. And it'd be interesting to see in today's culture how Don Rickles would survive. And I think he would. Because he had that ability to cross those lines and keep everybody in the circle.
Absolutely. No, they tried to cancel him. They've tried to cancel quite a few of the guys who love to play it, go up to the edge. And Rickles would have trouble with the cancel culture, but fans of his would not allow it to stand. We would fight back. Because Rickles, Rickles was like a major personality for me growing up. My insults come from a mixture of him and Norm Macdonald. And I was told one day when I was in the Army, I said something, and someone says, "Man, you sound just like Norm Macdonald." I said, "Who the fuck is Norm Macdonald?" I didn't know who it was. So I watched Late Night at the Improv, and I'm like, "Oh, that's it. Oh, I do talk like him. Oh, that's weird." I'm like, "Hey, I would do that voice." Like,
Rickles was great in Kelly's Hero, his crap game. If you remember that he was Don Rickles when he played in Kelly's Hero. He was good.
That was from Kelly's Heroes. That clip.
Yeah.
I love that movie. We did it on Military Monday. That's what we do, by the way, Kevin. Is we've already done Full Metal Jacket, but I'm thinking about revisiting it and just having you talk, and we'll show a slideshow and just have you talk about it.
Yeah, I would love to. Thank you.
Yeah. Military Monday is, all about veterans. And I have a lot of my veterans. Dale Dye came on. We did a nice interview. And we talked about a movie he did that's not that great a film. He was mad about it. It's called Firebirds. You remember that? It came out in 89, I think it was. It was right as I was going in the Army. I went in the Army in 90. I think it was 90. It was made in 89, released in 1990 with Nicolas Cage in it and Tommy Lee Jones and Sean Young, whom I'm friends with. Sean Young, beautiful Sean Young from Blade Runner and all that. That movie is just crap. They had such a great idea and it just fell flat. It was a paycheck for everybody involved. That was good. But we do that, and it's something I love doing. We also do another show that I haven't done in a while called Dangerous Military Nerds, where I have other veterans on and we talk. They give us their experiences, first time in combat, shit like that. And the whole thing is, in 2006, I'm like, I served in the military and I really didn't do anything. I was good at what I did, but I didn't do anything. My daughter said, "What'd you do in the Army?" I made a lot of jokes and kept the guys cheered up. That was about it. And that was my job as a medic. And I said in 06, I'm going to spend the rest of my life dedicated to focusing on military veterans and their needs, active duty and veterans. And so I started a comic book company. And I did the award-winning, Military Writers Award-winning graphic novel Code Word Geronimo about the killing of bin Laden by SEAL Team 6. We were the first ones to put it out. We put it out. I was drawing it right after it happened, and we finished the book for September 11th of that year of 2011 and released the book. Walmart's number one bestseller graphic novel. It was when they first started doing graphic novels, selling them at Walmart.
And what's the title of the book again?
Code Word Geronimo. And I created the book. Dale and his wife Julia wrote the book, and I drew it. And I broke a record too with the book. It was a fun little thing. Ted Adams and Chris Ryle over at IDW Publishing said that I had actually beat the record for drawing a book and finishing it in a period of time. I only had 3 weeks, and I drew 72 pages of comic art in 3 weeks. My daughter will tell you, I was a jerk for 3 weeks because I didn't get any sleep. I was like getting 4 to 3 hours sleep a night. But I finished that damn book, and it's a very accurate telling of the assault on the compound there with bin Laden,
right?
And how we took him down. But Sean Young probably knows Deckard is a replicant. Shut up, Monkey Jeeves. You don't know what you're talking about. But brother, I'm just curious.
We have some comments from our audience on Rumble.
As somebody,
Kevin,
Good run. Thank you for your.
Can you hear me?
Badly. Speak again.
Kevin, did you ever see Blade Runner?
I did. I don't recall very much of it, except Rutger Hauer was in it, I believe. Yes.
Yep.
And it was quite an appealing piece at the time, but I think I was a little too young to really understand it. And I did want to watch it again, but I haven't done so yet.
I was born in '64. What year were you born?
56, if we're talking out loud.
Oh, you could almost be my uncle, not my dad. So what were you going to say, Martin?
No, I was talking about this message from our Rumble audience.
Thank you for your service. Yeah,
from all of us that served, you are welcome. That includes you, Chief.
Yeah,
you served. Now, I did tease one of my cop buddies one day. He said, "Being a cop is just like being in the military." I said, "Except for if you have a bad day, you can quit."
Oh, Kevin is in the house.
Yeah, there's another fellow veteran, Kevin Cavalryman Che. Good day, gentlemen, in the panel and honored people in the chat. We love Che. We love Che.
And I want to do a shout out to Admiral Teague, if I may. I just saw your note. Just thank you very, very, very much, brother.
Teague is a great host. He does, and I've joined him. Keith and I, my partner, we've joined him to talk about Star Trek because we're nerds.
So, Kevin, I got to tell you my story. When I moved to Hollywood too, or moved to California.
Oh yeah. Because a lot of people don't know.
Because his was a little different.
You've worked
in
Hollywood.
I came from Detroit, and it was September '81. And before I got a job within a week. A couple buddies of mine flew out with me. They flew back. I stayed. I'm going down Santa Monica Boulevard. We're trying to get to we don't know anything about the area because we're all Midwestern kids, and we're trying to get to. I was 19. All right, yeah, I was 19, and we ended up driving through Santa Monica Boulevard, and there's this huge street fight with all these punkers. They got the leather on, spiked hair. I'm from the Midwest. That you're not used to seeing that. And a little further down was Santa Monica and Laurel. I don't know if you know these streets. One was Okie Dogs. Well. It was, I'm trying to think if that was Fairfax. And then a little further down, there's a knife fight right in the middle of the street, and guys are challenging us to a fight. Now, none of us are worried about getting in a fight because we grew up in Detroit, but I said, let's get out of here. And 4 years later, I ended up working those streets when I went to patrol. So I later joined the sheriff's department, ended up going in those streets, and it was sex, drugs, and rock and roll in West Hollywood for the first 9 years of my career as on working the streets there. But yeah, that was my. So when you found Grumman's and I found street crime, and I guess we were inspired by our first experiences to go the directions we went.
That's phenomenal, though.
Yeah.
It is little things like that, Kevin. They guide us through our careers. Little things move us. I mean, I thought I was going to be a lifer in the military, and instead, art ended up being the direction I went, and that in writing. And because I worked as a journalist too, published in several magazines, and I like doing it. And what did I write about? Film. I like writing about film. I'm a true cinephile. It's like I've been baptized. I've seen over 10,000 movies since I was a little kid. That's insane.
Yeah, it's a lot of film. I
love that was my babysitter though, TV. Yep. Just like they plant me in front of the TV and I just watch stuff.
The one actor that inspired me the most was Steve McQueen. Yeah. That was our generation, really, and certainly Paul Newman. But Steve McQueen was that guy, that everybody kind of looked up to, even the action heroes of their times. And I think he is so well worth spending some time looking at his career, his work. His charisma was fantastic. And he was a man's man. Did he ever serve? Do you guys know?
Oh, Steve McQueen served in it was either the Marine Corps or the Navy. It was one or the other. But there were three cool guys from the same area. All three knew each other. They all knew each other. They were frenemies. They were friendly, but they were competitive. James Garner, Paul Newman, and Steve McQueen. and there was a rivalry between all three of them.
Yeah.
Like the whole thing with race cars, because all three were in race car movies.
Yes, they did.
And because I'm a big fan of James Garner. James Garner, also a Korean War veteran.
Yep.
He was either Navy or Marine Corps. I couldn't remember, but he is so good in The Sand Pebbles. It's one of my favorite war films of all time. We still haven't done it.
I like doing a lot of old movies, and what I notice about it, there's a period right after World War II where just about every actor served, right? And they're all, and I just think the military brings, even the guys that next generation, a lot of them served, because if I remember correctly, Clint Eastwood served, right?
Yep.
Yes. And so there was this we still had this attitude of service that we needed to serve, right? But a lot of those old movies, if you think about it, I mean, Jimmy Stewart, he served, right? And I think he continued serving all the way to the rank of general. And most people don't know that. Eddie Albert.
He retired from he went in the Army Air Corps, retired from the Air Force. Clint Eastwood, ironically, was a lifeguard.
But he still served,
But he served.
Yeah.
Like Leonard Nimoy, and quite a few were like this. They actually worked in the film corps for the U.S. military, the Department of Defense. Still served, but they got to stay stateside and shoot movies and stuff for the military. But then there are some guys that were right there in the thick of it. Jimmy Stewart and Clark Gable both were on B-17s. And Jimmy wanted to, as I recall, it was Jimmy, it wasn't Clark Gable, wanted to try out being a waist gunner on a 17 and learned his lesson. And he said, these were the exact words he said, "I'll never do that again."
I think Eddie Albert was at Tarawa.
Eddie Albert was at Tarawa.
I was trying to think of the tough guy. He played in Who Shot Liberty Valance. He was the bad guy. He was a Marine. I think he was Peleliu.
You said Jack Palance or
he
Jack
was the
Palance,
bad guy. No, it wasn't Jack Palance. It was.
But Jack Palance served too.
Lee Marvin.
No,
Lee was
Marvin.
a Marine.
That's it. Yeah,
every one of his guys were killed in his squad. Everybody was killed. He was the only survivor. And as they were dragging him off the beach, he begged for the medics to leave him so he could die with his guys.
Yeah,
he was embarrassed and ashamed that he survived. He suffered horrible PTSD, but survivor's guilt was the worst thing he suffered from.
Which I know well. So yeah. We're going to do a show. I got a new show under development December 6th, and I'm doing police suicides as my first show, just because we've had a spike of them this year. And
I'm surprised it's not higher right now with just the way law enforcement is being treated.
Well, 54% higher than the regular community, the regular society, and so my department just had 4 people commit suicide in the past few weeks. So that's going to be my first inaugural show on KJRA Radio, December 6th. But and you don't know how much these guys went through and to cause them to be where they're at, and the post-traumatic stress they have, and those are the unseen wounds that we talk about. So
that's just it. But by the way, I just want to show this. The shitting on is not just from me to them, but the audience shits on me too. I never knew Gary was in the military. She's being a dick to me.
Okay.
But
I want to jump on something you just said, Chief. I was in New York. I was on tour with my 911 Angel Camaros. And for those who don't know, there are 5 911 Angel Camaros that carry the names of everybody we lost in that tragic, fateful day. But I was being honored at the Retired Detectives Society out there, and George Pataki, governor, or mayor, I don't remember his position.
It was governor, yeah.
Governor spoke on stage before I was invited up, and they allowed me a few minutes to really say what was on my mind. And what was on my mind 2 years ago was how much disrespect is really going on with our civilian population and our law enforcement. And I remember just passionately telling that side of my opinion. And I came off the stage and obviously was thanked by an awful lot of men and women in suit and ties the evening. And there were probably 500 detectives there. But one detective walked up to me and touched my spirit in such a way. I could see that the ghost of Christmas past was sitting in him, in his heart. And he reached out and he put his arm around me and he said, "You have no idea. The words that you spoke tonight have inspired me not to take my life."
Yeah.
And I was so saddened by the fact that I was meeting somebody on that precipice wearing that suit and tie and his badge, that he had been so demeaned by our society at large, and that he was giving up his hope for a future day. So, yeah, I get the point of what you're saying. And if I can be of any help to help wrangle that monster within some of your peers, comrades, brothers, sisters, please just tap me on the shoulder. I can be an angel for you. I would like to be and make a difference if I can.
Sure.
Yeah.
Gary, you're muted again. You're muted.
Sorry about that. One last clip I wanted to show is you getting your ass handed to you by Frank Sinatra.
Okay.
I edited it myself because I didn't want to show the whole dialogue of what he's saying to you. I wanted to get the action of what you were doing here.
Very good.
So
Look, it won't do you any good to take me back anyway, man. My lawyers will get me off. You know they will. I'll say Dusty did it. What difference does it make to you?
She was my granddaughter. You slimy bastard.
Rainey!
I love that scream.
Is this? Do you have blue eyes too, Kevin? Is this old blue
Yeah, I
eyes
do.
versus young blue eyes? It's
Yeah.
That's true. You've got
and-
very pale blue eyes on camera.
And the other thing too about working with Mr. Sinatra that day, those couple of weeks actually, was he truly is who he is, the biggest icon around us. And we were told that we were going to do some rehearsal for that stunt work we were doing, me taking his punches, et cetera, et cetera. And all of a sudden now we're being called to the set and we have not had that rehearsal. And Mr. Sinatra was grabbing my hair at quite a velocity and throwing me around the place a little bit. And you just stand there and you take the beating proper because it is blue eyes.
Frank's done that in real life. So
yeah, no, and it was easy. I never knew where the punch was coming from. I just know that when it came, just go with it. And whatever he needed to do, whether it was the knee to the face or whatever, you just took it. And he was excellent to work with. He really was. I miss him as well. We all do. And he's given such a gift to planet Earth and its history. So just thank you. And isn't this silly that my theme song when I walk onto talk shows is Nancy Sinatra? These boots are made for walking.
Yeah.
And here I have that as my theme song, and her father as a co-host in Magnum PI. So to the Sinatra family, thank you for all the years of fondness and celebrity as well.
Well, I've got one last question before we end the show today, and I really am curious. How did you find the experience of working with Kubrick? Because people can be put off by him. Yeah. Some people are just absolutely just lost in admiration of him. There's a mixed bag of how people react to him. What was your personal reaction to him?
He was very much like my own father. So it was kind of like a revisiting from heaven, going through Stanley's persona. I've been asked to host a documentary about Full Metal Jacket, the back untold story, and some of these conversations will take place within that documentary. But I will tell you this, we sometimes put people on a pedestal because we watch the grandness of their work and or their personality or celebrity. Then you finally get a chance to meet that personality and you go, oh, didn't live so much up to my pedestal I put you on. However, Stanley is quite the opposite. You just cannot put him on a high enough pedestal. That's how big this man is. His thinking powers are tremendous. And I think that very few people got close to him in a bonding kind of way. But because of my father's teachings and influence and love of my life, in my life, I was able to transcend that and have that moment with Stanley Kubrick. And there was a shot where Matthew and I are walking, cigarettes under my arm. I want him to take me out into the shit. And I'm begging him to take me. And Stanley, for 3 weeks, made us do that work, take after take after take. And I said to Stanley, I said, if I get this shot right, I want a hug, Stanley. And Stanley went, whoa, 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 stop, stop, stop. Get the man a carton of cigarettes. That's my hug back to you, Mr. Howard, a kind of deal. And then I found myself being able to ingratiate his moment and say, Stanley, the shot's over. We got it. I want my hug. And I went running up to him, and he came towards me, even though he was going, please don't. It's not who I am publicly. And he outstretched his arms. I outstretched mine, and we grabbed onto each other. And it was one of the most thirsty hugs I had ever quenched for anyone. He hung on to me for minutes that went by, and I got to his heart and soul. In that moment, we bonded as true people, and I loved being able to give him that, because he made films every 10 years, which is when he would surround himself with just the male entities of life, so he could discuss guns, he could discuss chess, the man things of life. And the 10 years were mostly spent around the women in his life only. So as man to man,
his daughter and his wife, yeah,
it was truly an amazing moment for me and for him. I think the way he grabbed on and he said, "Thank you."
He did some of the music for this film, even though it's really almost sound effects more than it is anything.
Yeah,
but it's very captivating to listen to, like the scene where you're hunting the sniper. That sounded like a gate. That was his daughter. That was his daughter doing that shit.
Yeah, Vivian.
Question here: did Kubrick really tell people if they did better job acting, the filming in the rain would be over sooner?
Say that again.
Admiral Teague says, did Kubrick really tell people if they did a better job acting in the film or the filming in the rain would be over sooner?
I'm only going to lend myself to this part of the conversation. I remember being Dorian Harwood, an actor, and his contract was expired, and they wanted to write him a new contract. Stanley did, but he had recording dates he had to go do that he had already committed to. But Stanley didn't want you to paint him into a corner. And I believe the storyline was about Stanley filmed Dorian Harwood being shot up by the sniper in the courtyard. And he did it through 6 weeks of snow falling weather. And we all knew that Stanley could not use any of this film footage, but he put Dorian Harwood through this because he didn't want Dorian to have the upper hand about when he would be released as the actor from Full Metal Jacket.
Yeah, I remember that. That's in one of the making of documentaries, that he had pissed him off.
Yeah.
And he put him through that.
Yeah.
The whole sniper scene, killing his character sooner in the film.
Yeah.
But enduring the constant use of squibs on his body.
Right.
It's brutal. People don't know what those things are like.
Oh, yeah. And in the cold weather as well, you got all that liquid juice just flying all over you, and it's sticky and gunky, and it's not fun. And then the minute they would fire that squib off, send him off to the wardrobe trailer, get him a new fresh outfit, and bring him back to my set. And they would do that for 13 hours a day for the next 3 weeks. It was
because two things were rough about his shoots from everybody I've ever talked to, because I've actually been blessed to get to talk to several people who've worked with Kubrick. And is the excessive use of shots, just over, do it again, do it again, do it again. But the other thing was his phobia of traveling.
Yeah.
Everything had to be shot in the UK. Yeah. So all of this was shot down in Wales, as I recall. And so it's supposed to look like hot Vietnam when it was actually fucking cold all the time, that you guys had to carry ice in your mouths.
Yeah.
In order to keep from fogging when you were talking. It still slipped through. There's a scene where Modine is talking to Cowboy, and I forget that guy's name. What a great
Arliss Howard.
Arliss Howard. I love him as an actor.
Yeah, he's a good actor.
So good.
Yeah.
But you can see it come out of his mouth, a little mist, and but that's because of his phobia. But those are the two things that I always hear complaints about: is the long shoots that makes you shoot a scene over and over and over again. Did you find that to be a problem, or were you one of those people that could end a scene quickly?
I actually enjoyed it because it was more time with Stanley and making a Full Metal Jacket, but he does it because he wants the characters rooted in their foundation, and he believes in cause and effect, sort of like Midnight Cowboy with Dustin Hoffman and John Voight walking across that street, and a taxi cab not part of the scene. Almost
I'm walking here.
Down. I'm walking here. Yeah,
I'm walking here.
So everything is rooted in that foundation.
Well,
and
it is, and I do get that about him because he's looking for the best performance by the actor, and sometimes it's like this one little thing that he hasn't seen yet. It's one little thing, and he can't tell you what it is because he's not an actor's director.
Exactly. He said that to me, Kevin. I'm not an actor's director, but I know we've been rehearsing this a certain way, but just change it. And then he'd roll camera and you go, oh my God, I'm on fire alert. I got to change this. And all of a sudden, because you've been rooted in the rehearsals and that foundation of that character, life comes about. It's a cause and effect, that expression. And then the thing about him and traveling, he is such a mind. I mean, he could sit down with any physicist and do circles around them. Any engineer of any sort, he could sit and do circles around him. He was so intelligent and
he had a very high IQ. It's like 160, 165.
Yeah. So I think what happened is that he learned how to pilot a plane himself. And at that point, he said, no more, I don't want friends flying. You can't be a friend of mine if you take airplanes.
Now, he refused to fly.
Yeah,
he did not want to
think it was really because he understood about pilots and engineering and planes. They do fall out of the sky, people, and it doesn't take much. So I think that's why he was so against the flying element.
Now, he's been quiet this whole show, Kevin. Our good friend Deleted Scenes down here, also known to us sweetly as Stephen. And he is just a wonderful sweetheart of a guy. We love him. And he has not said one damn thing this whole show, but he has questions for you. So get him out, Stephen.
Okay. First thing I would just like to say, it is a pleasure to meet you. Full Metal Jacket.
All right, that's enough, Stephen.
One of my favorite.
Thank you. No, I'm just kidding. Go for it.
Go ahead, Stephen. Pleasure to meet you, sir.
Yes. Two Alien Nation questions. Number one, how long did the makeup process take?
Wow. 5.5 hours every morning. We had a 3-hour turnaround time because the Screen Actors Guild had that rule. If you were filming in the city, you had a 3-hour turnaround. So we had 5.5 hours putting it on, close to 6, and then 2 hours taking it up, tearing it off. Won't even say taking it off, tearing it off. It was a nightmare situation. But Manny Patinkin and I went to lunch one night, and we looked at each other from across the table after wearing our gear for 13 hours of every day. And we just basically burst into tears because of how horrible it was to be encased in that kind of glue, dripping.
It can trigger claustrophobia.
Oh, yeah. Well, 85% of our breathing takes place through the top of our head. So when you encase it, you can't breathe. Your attitude is you're committing Harry Carey on yourself, and you can't understand it because you follow up with this answer of, I'm a professional actor being professionally paid to do this role, and yet your body is screaming survival. So yeah, it was difficult.
You're absolutely in conflict with yourself.
Yes.
Which other question, Deleted?
And my other question is, how was the alien language created, and was it difficult to learn?
It was.
I do have a question on that before you answer, Kevin.
All right.
I think the clicking sounds were added later.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, go ahead, Kevin.
It was a difficult language to learn. It was created specifically for those characters, that film, the aliens. It was difficult at best. We did our best we could, but I think there was an awful lot of manipulation in post to help us carry it through.
Enhance it, yeah. By the way, I want to commend that character. Your performance in it is so good. you are technically one of the stars of the film. You're not just in the film. You're a major villain in the film.
Terrence Stamp. I have great respect for Terrence Stamp and Mandy Patinkin and myself in the fact that we were really it was a very tough experience to do 63 days of wearing that makeup. And Terrence Stamp, it was Christmas time, and as professional as that man is and always has been, it took a toll on each one of us. And we found ourselves speaking with the Elephant Man, played by John Hurt, I believe it was. And Terrence phoned up John and said, "John, how did you get through the Elephant Man?" And John replied with, "Well, I was drunk through all the entire performance." It explains an awful lot of why his character was what it was.
Oh my God. And that's a great movie too.
Yeah. And Freddy Krueger, what was the gentleman's name who played Freddy Krueger?
Robert Englund.
Yes. Phoned up Robert and said, "Robert, how are you doing all this makeup and dealing with this?" And the funniest thing that came out of his mouth was he absolutely enjoyed doing it. And Mandy and I and Terrence, we were so pain-stricken with the. I can tell you this: for 4 months after the film, I sat on my couch, legs crossed, Indian style, and I had a candle burning in front of me, and I sat there for 4 months staring at it, 1,000-yard stare. And I looked at the candle and I said, "Is that really a candle? Is it really burning?" And it just messed with your mind that much. And I often said to people, you could put $10 million down on a table to ask me to do that one more time, and I couldn't go near it. I just couldn't. It was that.
I got to show you this. This was put together by Martin. He made this just for today's show. Are you ready?
Okay. My true name is Inigo Montoya.
Princess Bride. That's
Inigo Montoya.
Yeah.
You killed my father. Prepare to die.
Prepare to die. Yes.
I'll give you anything. 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 Give me back my father, you son of a bitch.
Right? Yeah, it was a tremendous film. Christopher Guest was excellent in it as well. So much fun.
What was the most fun you ever had working on a film?
The most fun. I think it might be Eastwood's film because we had a car scene to do together, and I know that he loves to do his own stunts. And I found myself being the passenger in this vehicle where him and I confront each other on Fisherman's Wharf up in San Francisco, and I hand off a Molotov cocktail into his lap. We did one take, and the driver of my car wasn't that exciting about handling machinery. And so he was very formal about just driving beside Mr. Eastwood. And I remember the second take, Mr. Eastwood had said, "We can go for a little bit more visual, you know?" And I so wanted to drive our car because I was a hellraiser with an automobile as well. But I remember we were doing the scene the second time, and I looked over at my driver, and I thought, let me take over from the passenger seat. And I grabbed that wheel and I slammed it to the right, and we slammed into Eastwood. And all of a sudden, we're now going down the street, smacking each other against each other's cars. And the look on Eastwood's face is, am I going to get in trouble for this? No, probably not. Easily. And we got out of the car. We were like little kids. Oh, my God, that was great, guys. Slamming it. Yeah. And it was two guys playing with the toys on film, knowing they could not be arrested for having this kind of grand fun. Thank you so much, Chief.
By the way, it goes back to Garner was the same way. He did all of his own stunt driving. Yeah. Steve McQueen and Paul Newman all did their own stunt driving.
Yeah.
By the way, we're wrapping up now. After the end titles, if you'd stick around just for a minute after the show, we'd like to talk to you some more.
All right.
But again, I want to thank Six for your $5 super sticker. You're a sweetheart. We love you. Despite saying this to me, Gary decided to follow his fancy side and became an artist. That means that when I was in the Army and I was doing artwork, I held my pinky out. Pinky out. Let's see.
This is a special one.
Thank you, Kevin, for being so many of my favorite movies and shows growing up. That was from Che.
Thank you, Che.
Great guy. Let's see. Again, I want to show this one from Rumble. Hippie fucking 69. I don't know what the fucking I don't know. Supporter, thank you for your service. That's to all of us, I assume. You are very welcome. We're proud to do it. Let's see. Out of pure curiosity, did Gary, did SEAL Team 6 use the, oh, fuck you, the back door, play the video. God damn it. I'm telling you, that's sneaky. He snuck it in there really well. All right, go ahead.
Wait. I have to.
No, I'm not going to wait. Do it now. Do it now.
Do it.
Do it. Get to the chopper.
Front door team and back door team.
You know Scandog's all about the back door, but quick question, when has splitting the party ever worked?
We like having fun. Okay, Kevin. Last one I have saved 2 lives when my friend was pregnant with her son. She calls me her little brother for saving her life. That's fantastic, Tim. Thanks a lot, buddy. I want to thank everybody for being here. I want to thank Kevin. Thank you so much for being here, man. And I'm so grateful, too, that you were on Patrick's show this week, the Chief. Morning Coffee with the Chief. All of our morning shows are basically called Morning Coffee with. And I'm so glad I gave that show to him. It's my favorite show to watch during the week because he's talking about things that are outside the norm of what I deal with.
Yeah.
And I like listening to stuff about law enforcement, and he talks about movies I love.
Well, my next show, we're going to do the 7-Ups, and I have a retired NYPD officer coming on, so it should be
That's going to be great. I wonder if he's going to say,
classic chase scene. Classic chase scene. They did the same director did the chase scene for Bullet and French Connection, so it should be
there. You go. And that was guerrilla filmmaking right there, the French Connection. They got no permission to do those stunts. They're out in the street. Those are like real people walking around and shit. They're doing these stunts.
Hey, it's New York.
Freak is nuts, man. Yeah. How you doing? No. How you doing? Gene Hackman. I do consider that movie the true sequel to the French Connection because that character is the same character and it's based on the real person that was, in the French Connection or involved with French Connection. So you were going to say something, Kevin?
No, I just said Gene Hackman.
Yep.
Gene fucking Hackman. We still got him. I love seeing those photos of him. People are like, oh, he's a doddering old man. I'm like, you shut up. You shut up. He was also a Marine, by the way. Served in the Marine Corps. Chief, do American Gangster.
We'll get to it. I like talking about the narcotics explosion. Oh, yeah, we'll get to it.
Russell Crowe played the cop in that movie, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, good film. But I want to thank everybody for being here. God, I hate ending the show because this is so much fun. I actually enjoy doing this, Kevin. I like just hanging out with people and actors, filmmakers, just talking about film.
To all of you, thank you so much for the invitation today. To all of you, thank you for my freedoms. My family doesn't take it lightly. And to all those listening, thank you so much for the support and blessings for all the years you've blessed me. So thank you.
We thank you, sir. With that, we'll end the show. And again, Kevin, please stick around for after the show because we usually talk for just a few minutes. Everybody, have a great weekend.